Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. Let's have a look at these Pass Labs, weird, Pass Labs XA160.5 Monoblock amplifiers. So, a pretty nice piece of, I would say, starter gear. Not at the very bottom, but also not really entirely in the medium range. But I just feel like a really solid piece of gear with, a lot of potential. This is one of the reasons why I think that I would generally recommend Pass Labs more than a lot of other brands in that category. I feel that with stuff like this, then it feels as if normal humans with normal money can get a sort of I wouldn't call it a Macintosh type of monoblock sound because I actually think it's a tiny bit better, but I feel like this is one of the entry levels at getting good gear, that does a lot of good stuff. So I've been fortunate to hear this at least 15 times. And these are my thoughts. So lots of potential, quite a steal on the used market, and can sound very interesting for a lot of people considering stuff like, Macintosh, Levinson, Class A, Audioflight, that type of gear, but it's just more affordable, you know. There's just a lot of people that want a powerful amp, monoblock, set of monoblocks, and they want something that, within range. A lot of people just can't afford these huge Macintosh monoblocks or whatever company that makes those types of things, because they're usually crazy expensive. And buying stuff like this used, you can usually get this for a couple of $1,000. So I thought, just alone because of that price, I thought, wow, this is actually quite interesting. Quite interesting. So let me just be honest. I feel that personally, for me, this is a bit too thin, too bright, too mechanical, too flat. But then you can do some tweaks. I'm not talking about changing the insides of the amp. I'm just talking about regular tweaks that you do on your system. Putting a better DAC on it, putting a better CD, putting better cables, stuff like that, and then you just suddenly it reacts. It changes the sound. You get more interested in it. And I feel that just there's a lot of gear out there, especially in the pretend high-end world, which is around this brand. There's a lot of things around this quality, uh, this zone that this brand is in, where no matter what you do, it just doesn't change enough for you to really like the gear. And I feel that this changes just enough for you to persevere, to like it, to discover those extra gears, to kind of orient yourself, try to, use some different speakers, very different speakers. And in a way, it is pretty versatile. You can use this on pretty trashy gear and control it. Those really low quality B&W speakers, or like a normal Avalon speaker, or like a much more posh speaker. But again, you kind of want to avoid ultra revealing speakers that have a tendency of being bright. You don't want to put like a really low model of Martin design or perhaps a Verity speaker on this, that already struggle with some few problems. I mean, at least if you're going with those brands, you want to get a more meaty type of speaker model to go with this, because it's essential, absolutely essential, that you get a proper preamp for these, because the preamp can easily make you lose out on a lot of the potential of this. I know that the sound is a bit gray, it's a bit impersonal, it's a bit mechanical, to some degrees for a lot of people very boring, but there's still that there is a lot of potential. There is there is the possibility for you to move the sound, and I think that's what when I consider good gear, I consider the fact that you're able as a user to move the sound. If this was a Macintosh monoblock, my God, would you just have to, you would almost be totally locked into using the Macintosh preamp for it to sound like reasonably good. And then you would have to use some certain cables, some certain speakers. And yeah, it could to some degree sound better than this, but you're kind of in a more closed type of world where you're just very limited with the amount of choices, that at least in my opinion. And of course the newer Macintosh monoblocks that I haven't heard, I've heard that those are a lot better, a lot more versatile in sound, so I can't compare it to those things. I'm just comparing it to like the regular monoblocks that Macintosh has been producing the last, I don't know, 30 years time, not the last couple of years. So just a lot of potential, and I heard this a lot with warmer cables, and again, you just feel like you're getting closer to that sound, you're it's like, oh, you're really close, but still it just doesn't quite give you that natural, relaxed, fully evolved sound where the artist comes close to you. It still feels like you're talking to a stranger that doesn't want to quite show you the intimate real side of himself. He kind of wants to keep you at a distance. It has to be in this sort of almost pretend hi-fi crispy gray, over there type of sound, but still at certain points it feels as if it's it's getting closer to you. It kind of wants to get closer to you, but then again, you tweak your gear, change some cables, change the positioning of your speakers, and you kind of have it, you kind of don't. It can kind of drive you crazy, but still you're getting so much value for your money. So you know I think a lot of people in the world will like this type of sound, and they look pretty decent, I think that if they hadn't had this design thing at the front, if they didn't have this thing moving, the watt meter, I think that it actually wouldn't sell quite as much. I think this is like a key point for it selling. It's a lot like the Macintosh gear and the Aquaphase gear. The fact that you just have that thing to look at, I feel that it kind of gives you as a listener hope, seeing something that isn't necessarily there. It's weird, isn't it? It's kind of a psychological, manipulated, hypnotic way of getting you interested in a sound. But yeah, there is potential here. That there is stuff to work with, and but like my friend did, I'm just gonna go into that. I feel that this. I think that in a way I like the sound more than I do with the Macintosh monoblocks, because it just feels a bit more organic, a bit more 3D. You're just getting a bit more of that detail. It's a bit more defined instead of undefined, flat, and artificially separated. I feel that with the Macintosh monoblocks, you get this artificially separated, undefined sound where, yeah, you got more grip, yeah, you got more power, but so what? If you can't define the instrument where exactly it is in the room, and you can't position it on the depth, perception, do you really like that? Some people do, other people don't. So it's frustrating. I feel that having an amp like this is a bit of a love and hate relationship. A bit like when I had my Macintosh amp. That in a way you really like it, but in another way you just really hate it, or you just hate it a bit and it's just driving you nuts. And I feel that especially you as a user trying to, almost with any Past Labs monoblock set, trying to find a proper preamp that can fully squeeze that last 5-10% of potential that's in it. I find that to be very difficult, very, 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 very difficult. And I have heard a Audionote M3 preamp on it, lower end M3 preamp, that kind of did that, did that better than even the XP30 preamp that Past Labs made. But there still wasn't quite that coupling. You could still feel that it wasn't quite there, that the sound was a bit simple, a bit naked, a bit not caring, in that Macintosh area of sound. But again, can you really say that that's a bad thing when you look at these prices? I mean, the price of this, I think in my country, I could potentially get this for around $4,000 used. And yeah, it might be like 15, 20 years old used, but at least for that amount of money, how can you really get that amount of detail used for that amount of money? I mean, I'm just talking about raw detail, raw information, that structural part of the sound. I don't really think you can in many circumstances. It's just I think that's kind of what gets people, what grabs them. That bony cut down to the bone type of detail. It's a bit like when you have those Oyed 004 plugs and M1 F1 plugs. It just digs so deep down to the bone of the sound. Yeah, there's a bit of meat and naturality missing, but I think that's what fascinates people, that movement, that intensity, that the way it digs down to the bone. Yeah, it's missing layers for it to get to the really, really, really good equipment out there, the better gear like Ear, Jadis, stuff above that, of course. But again, price wise, man, are you just getting a lot of value for your money. So and again, for me, it's a bit flat, a bit bright, a bit disingenuous, and a bit too hyped in sound. And if you have like a smallish not so good tweeter in a small cabinet with a small mid-range, like on the Verity Sarastro speaker, that's revealing a lot of detail, it just gets a bit weird and creepy, where it feels like you're just listening to gear instead of you're listening to real music. But again, there's room for changing that. You can solve a lot of problems still with cables, with power, with good network, with good stream, with a good CD player, a DAC. It does react, and I gotta commend Past Labs for doing that, because you can't you can't take that for granted. You can't take that for granted at these levels of hi-fi. Usually when you get this type of detail, it's locked. It's a bit like the Macintosh sound, monoblocks, it's just locked, and you can't open it up, and you have to do certain things, and it kind of comes out in bits and pieces and phases here and there, and it does something, to kind of like cement the sound, so you're missing the other spectrum of the sound. And I feel that there just is stuff to work with here, and I fully get why Past Labs is so popular. It's because of amps like this. I feel that this is where Pass Labs kind of cemented their sound, why they got so popular, why a lot of people want their gear. It's because of stuff like this. You can get stuff like this really cheap. This together with the XP30 preamp, I wouldn't be surprised if you could get those used in the US for like $4,000 to $8,000 used together in good condition. Of course, they've made some different models, like the original 160. Then there's a 165, and then 0.8, and all of that stuff. And I haven't heard the latest version, but I did hear from people that it was supposed to be more meaty, kind of putting a bit more of that missing detail on it that was missing before. I feel that this is a bit of a naked, meaty, bright, raw type of sound that is a bit too much on the structural part, where it gets a bit analytical. And I've heard from people that I know that the newer ones just are more natural in sound. So I'm very happy for that. And I mean, potentially, if I had an unlimited amount of money, I would also try and probably buy the biggest newest Passlab monoblocks and the XP32, not the 30. And I'm pretty sure that would be a lot better than the old stuff that they've made. But I'm still kind of doubting the naturality, the full integration. There's still a lot of that, edginess of the transistor sound. So you have to definitely be a guy who's really into transistor to like the sound still. But yeah, I heard it with Avalon speakers. My God, did that sound horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. But, you could have if you had good conditions for that Passlab setup and really good Avalon speaker, like on one of the top models in a good room, and you had control over everything, I'm pretty sure that could still to some degree sound very cool, very, very good in many different ways. It's just, for me personally, that was really unnatural, ugly, and grotesque, and just, weird, very weird. And with these older B&W speakers, again, I get it why people do it. It does squeeze more detail out of them. It does isolate certain parts of the sound that you couldn't get before. But again, that's kind of, I think it's kind of an insult to this amp. You want something that's better than that. At least the newer B&W speakers are a lot better. Especially the I can't remember what it's called, 800 model D3 or something like that. I think that would suit this quite a bit. But the Versatility Sarastro speaker, that was a very daring sound to have on this, and I feel that didn't quite succeed doing that. Only when we put on the Audionote preamp, the M3 preamp, did it really stabilize the sound quite a bit more, but still not quite reach the finishing end line. So, and yeah, I just want to say that I just feel that Passlabs generally, with their higher models, their mid to high models, they reach a sound that just is a bit more realistically 3D and just a tad bit more natural than I would say most Macintosh gear that I've heard, and Mark Levinson gear. But it's just the fact that it's reactive, just don't take that for granted. There's so much gear out there that just doesn't react, it has like a cool numbness to it where you just can't, doesn't matter what you do, you just can't move that sound. And because of that, you start believing in cables. And when you start believing in cables and you then put the gear, which is already pretty locked on in some other weird conditions, you just get this, certain angle of sound that just isn't really that good, But yeah, I would, if I didn't have an XP30 preamp on this as a minimum, I would not want to listen to any pass labs. You know, I just feel that it's essential that you have an XP30 pass labs preamp as a minimum. And probably the 32 model is better, I'm guessing that. But when I heard the XP20 pass labs model, I was really, really disappointed with the pass labs monoblocks that I heard. It just sounded so shit. I mean, to some degree, it did some things that was kind of okay, but it was just way too thin, way too unnatural, way too hard, way too much focus on the structural part. It was just missing quite a bit, and you could only really get that by compensating, you know, putting some, you know, sugary cables on it that kept it, you know, minimized that horribleness. So it's just, there is a lot of potential, you know, there is a lot of potential. As soon as once you get into XP30 preamp, and perhaps something like, I don't know, PS Audio preamp, or even better, like an Audio Note preamp, it can just sound a hell of a lot better. And I feel that that's basically me having covered everything in this review. You could of course fix problems with the DAC, not the DAC, Cardis cables. Cardis kind of fits the Pass Labs type of sound, but I also feel that when you start using cables like that, it removes a tiny bit of that 3D effect. So just be aware of that. I heard a really good Macintosh MCD 1100 DAC on a Macintosh system. Sounded pretty awesome, but as soon as I heard it on this system here, it was actually really bad, really bad. It really made me doubt when I heard this Macintosh DAC, was it really that good, you know? And I think that just proves that you can have a pretty decent DAC, but if it just doesn't speak the same language, you know, it's just game over, game over. And we tried so many, at my friend's place, we tried so many expensive DACs in the transistor range of 5 to 25,000 US dollar zone, and you know, it did a bit of this, it did a bit of that. It was all kind of interesting, but in the end, you know, again, Audio Note DAC together with the Audio Note preamp really helped cement the Pass Lab sound. I feel that there should be more people out there realizing that Pass Labs, putting that on a lower quality speaker and a normal preamp, it's an insult. You know, you're insulting your Pass Labs monoblocks. At least have an XP30 preamp from Pass Labs. You know, then it's okay. You know, then you can kind of get away with stuff. But once you start getting into this here, you know, this type of sound, this level, and then the M3 Audio Note preamp, it just turns into a completely different set of monoblocks that plays music, you know. And yeah, it isn't like 100% there where it should be, but I feel that that's the sound that you're supposed to listen to, you know. So that's kind of my take on the whole thing. And kind of to wrap it up with, I feel that Pass Labs would be good with some medium to high-end Full-Take plugs, or like the Oyate 079 plugs. I feel that would be really good with Pass Labs in general. I've heard that on Pass Labs, but I have to say 029, 046 plugs did not sound good. 037 only sounded good as soon as you got the Audio Note gear on it, because it's kind of made for that sound. So I think it could easily become a hit and miss type of thing where you miss a lot of that potential. You know, that there is a lot of potential here with these monoblocks, but finding it can be a bit tricky, you know. And I heard this next to like a Bob Carver 180 set of monoblocks, no competition. Bob Carver just beat this with like 3 or 4 times, just 3 or 4 times better. And you know what? Those Bob Carver monoblocks cost about the same. So I'm just going like, why would you even then want to buy Pass Labs? You know, maybe because you can't get the Bob Carver. I don't know, but just that M3 preamp from Audionote together with those Bob Carver 180 monoblocks, my God, was just that one. That was just one of the best value top end combinations that I've ever heard in my life. And so just know that, you know, this still is good sound. You can still work with it. That there are a lot of gears, but maybe you own this, and maybe you want something that's, you know, that's next level shit, you know, that you can't really afford. That's always usually 5, 10, 20 times more expensive than what you really can sell your gear for. Get those Bob Carver 180 monoblocks. You know, it's just a lot better than this, a lot more natural, a lot more integrated, a lot more 3D, a lot more adaptable to the room, you know. So yeah, that's not saying anything bad about Pass Labs, you know, still very good value. And that's why I kind of wanted to make this review, because I just want to tell people that, you know, Pass Labs starts here. It starts at the 160 monoblock amplifiers, you know, in my opinion, you know. I don't know about the newer models, but I can only imagine that the newer gear that Pass Labs makes is better. That's what I've heard from people that I know. But yeah, just a lot of things to think about. I think that a lot of people don't really cover in the hi-fi world. You know, you always get these, you know, these certain magazines reviewing these things, saying all these, coming up with all of these weird stories and comparing it to this and that, and being very vague about stuff, you know. And at least, you know, even though you don't like my opinion, I'm not being very vague about it. Okay, I'm being very direct and honest, and saying the stuff that, you know, yeah, a lot of channels that are sponsored can't really say. So yeah, good value for the price. Definitely something that I would recommend a lot of people trying. There are gears there that you can tune into, unlike a lot of other stuff usually in this range of price when it's new. So try it and see if you like that sound, and know that, yeah, you can actually change the personality and make it a lot better. So yeah, that's me having said that. I'm logging off, and like and subscribe if you can.